You are listening to The Examine Life with Bram Levinson. So what you're listening to is somewhat of an experiment, because for a long time I have been saying that whenever I would hang out with a friend of mine, we would talk about how the conversation needed to be recorded, that people would get a kick out of it. And it's happened actually with a couple of friends of mine in different contexts, different situations. And some of them it's been in cars, as we were in like carpools. Some people it's when I'm over at their place, some people when they're over at mine. But consistently over the last more than decade, I've been saying it about do we want to use names?
Yeah, we could use names.
Okay. With my friend Adriana. Adriana is family, and Adriana is, I mean, it's like sharing sometimes a brain with someone, sharing a sense of humor with someone, and that sense of humor is not always PC, and it's not always correct, and I don't want to say politically correct because I just said PC, but correct, like, you know, sometimes you just go, ooh, that's wrong. Sometimes that's what it is, and sometimes that's what it needs to be with your people. And in these, you know, people call them strange times. I don't find them strange times. I find in these times, I feel like, you know what? I've got nothing left to lose. I've got nothing to lose. We're doing this. And so I don't know what this podcast is going to be called. I want to title it something like Conversations with Friends, but that's boring. So we'll see. But welcome to our moment. I am sitting here on Mount Royal, in this very secluded area of Mount Royal with
Adriana
Palanca. And we had a really interesting conversation yesterday, or 2 days ago. Because 2 days ago, you know, people have been talking about the ups and downs in this whole pandemic situation, the mood up and down. And 2 days ago, I mean, I've generally speaking, I think I've been good. I think I've had like I've been mainlining, which has been good. It's been just a steady stream of good. And then every now and again, I'll have a day where I don't realize that it's that day. I don't realize it. I don't realize that's what I have been talking about, that's what other people have been talking about, until I'm like, oh, that's why I feel really angry. And the other day I just felt, I felt so angry and so impatient. And I just felt, I think we talked about it. I felt like the limitation. I felt like there was so much limitation. I can't. And again, I know that this is like, you know, white man in Western culture complaining, but I can't get up and go to England to spend time with the people I love there. I can't bank, and I don't mean that financially, but I can't bank on like the trips that I give around the world right now. There's just so many limits that are being put on all of us. And
oh my God. And like, I was having the exact same experience as you on Sunday.
Which I didn't even know. You had texted me a meme that was really funny. Probably one of the best memes. I think you won the meme game for the whole COVID moment.
We're going to have to share that somewhere.
Yeah, if anybody listens to this, ask us for that.
Yeah,
and
the mayonnaise lady.
And we'll send it to you.
Yep.
But go on.
But I think like what was happening is I was having like a more refined limitation problem, in that, you know, here's Miss, I'm a bright young for 20 years, like I can handle uncertainty and I'm fine, I'm just gonna meditate, and just like I'm gonna breathe into my heart chakra. But what happened on Sunday was I had come to the end of my tools.
Yeah.
Meditation wasn't helping. It was just making me more agitated.
Yep.
I didn't want to get on a mat. Are you fucking kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to eat healthy. I didn't want to take a bath. I didn't want to take a walk. I just wanted to lie on the floor, pound my little fists on my wooden floor, and just cry and have like full-on baby pity party.
Yep. And it's so funny because you texted me that meme. It was so funny that I had to call you, and I called you and we were laughing our ass off, and I was like, oh, so how are you? And you're like, probably the worst day ever. Woke up crying, spent the whole day crying, and I was like, oh, because I had that day too, but it manifested as anger.
Yeah.
And exactly to what you were talking about, you know, I've been doing this mindfulness meditation. I went into the park with my dog. We sat down in the grass. I closed my eyes. I did the counting. I did the breathing. And all it did was make it worse.
Yeah.
It just made what I was feeling worse. And
more angry.
And you know, I made my peace with that. And then got up, and on the walk home with the dog, I literally out loud may have said I think I said to somebody, get out of the fucking way. Like there was no patience. And then I was losing my shit with the dog because she wanted to like smell like a post where there was urine, and I was, you know, I just wasn't having it.
No.
But it's such a good point that you brought up, because yesterday, you know, I was speaking to somebody in a professional context who was saying that, like, you know, you can spend your whole lifetime with the tools. At a certain point, and it's not I don't want to say like an extended certain point, but there will be moments when congratulations on doing all that work, it means nothing. It's because it's not going to help. And sometimes you just have to be in the shit. Sometimes you just have to be in the anger and be in the sadness and I think that's a big lesson for me, because I don't like to feel badly. Do you know what I mean? So when shit like that happens, I think it instigates what can I do to shift this? And sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes you just have to be in it. And you said something really interesting. Oh, about the fixers.
Yes.
The other day.
So I'm having right now, the thing that's actually making me rage are the fixers. The people who are still kind of like clinging to some idea that there's something that they can do to fix this all the time.
Yeah.
And so the incident in question, I was saying to somebody how much I miss human touch. And they said to me with 100% earnestness in their voice, you should go hug a tree. And I got super quiet. And because I thought it was a joke, and I said, right. I'm just going to go eat some granola and hug a tree. It's all good. And they're like, no, Adriana, it's the closest thing to a living being. Like, if you just hug it and you're close to it, and like you really press your heart against it, you'll begin to feel better. And in my heart of hearts, the dark place, with the things that I can only tell Bram Levinson, I wanted to say, point out the tree, because I want to cut it down and shove it up your ass.
And you told me this the other day, and the second she started talking about a tree, I swear to God, it was like time froze. I've had people over the past couple of months talk to me about trees.
These are people who are trying to avoid their basic animal bodies. Because what I realized about Sunday is that I needed to be a primal animal.
Ooh, that's so good.
You know,
that's
like,
so true.
Because when you get on the mat, you're trying to access your higher self, your higher knowledge.
What separates us from my dog, for instance.
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to be the fucking dog.
Be the dog. Be Willow. # be Willow.
Be Willow.
But that's so smart.
And it's
that's so smart.
And like, why are you trying to commune with a tree? Because you can't deal with your own animal body.
Yes, possible. Yes. Holy shit.
Like right now, my body is hairy.
Yeah.
It's stinky.
Yeah.
I'm wearing the same clothes that, well, I showered for you.
Thank you.
But it's kind of like I can't get past this animal body.
Yeah.
And what's happening is this animal body is not getting its needs. It's not getting hugs. It's not getting touch.
Yes.
And I had like a breakdown. I needed to be this like crazy primal. I screamed at one point. Mm-hmm. I was like pounding my fists on the floor and screaming. Because that's the only way that was going to make me feel better.
Yeah.
No tree, no ray of sunshine, no mandala was going to rescue me.
But from
the grief.
Isn't that interesting though? The aesthetic of the child having a tantrum, and we have been so led to believe and conditioned to believe that that's wrong. You know, that the kid having the tantrum is the wrong behavior, and they need to sort of intellectualize and use their language. Yeah, use their words. Sometimes you just want to have a fucking tantrum. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck everyone. Fuck all this shit. Fuck anyone who's trying to help, including me, because I'm trying to help as much as I can, but I'm trying to do it as honestly as possible, and that's why I want to talk about this, because I don't want people to think that like, oh, you're in trouble, turn to Buddhism. You're in trouble, turn to yoga and Hinduism. It's like sometimes when you're in trouble, you're in trouble. And sometimes even thinking, well, I guess it's just another way of life expressing itself is like, oh, fuck you, fuck off. Yep. You know, it's just shit. Sometimes it's just shit, and it's okay for it to be just shit. But I think the most important thing is to remember that it is very roller coaster-ish.
And, you know, to come back to the fixers thing, can you just look up and look at this tree right now?
I know. Hey, I read yesterday
Gorgeous.
in Psychology Today that one of the things we should be doing constantly, not just in moments like this, is looking up.
Really?
To see sky, to see leaves. Because right now, I mean, those of you listening aren't with us, but we're looking up and there is like this foliage of newly mint leaves over us. It's so beautiful out here. I don't know if you can hear the sounds. But
like, for all the trash talking about trees.
I know.
Trees are beautiful.
I know. I'm such a hypocrite.
No, but there are moments of beauty. It's just that some moments you need to have a complete breakdown.
Yes. And I mean, listen, if I ever... I know I'm going to go to hell for this, but if and maybe I'm already in hell. I don't know. Maybe that's why I had that day the other day.
You and I are going to be down there together, so I'm totally...
I think all the good people are with us.
Exactly.
If you ever hear me say I went to go hug a tree, I want you to follow me.
I'll take you down.
I want you to pick up one of the boulders around me and bash my skull in with it, okay? So, you were saying?
To get back to the fixers, because you and I, in our own separate ways, are fixers.
Yes.
In that people come to us frequently for help or for guidance, mentorship, whatever, in our own different ways. And we were talking about the two different types of fixers, because some people fix or help to fix simply by listening.
Right.
I think like what was enraging me this week was the well-meaning people who were, oh, but maybe you just need to call somebody and you'll feel better, and you should Zoom some. Do you notice the voice I get when
I like it. I like it.
It's laced with
I like it,
rage.
but what that tells me is their transparency. You can see through it.
Ugh, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. And even if it comes from a good place, sometimes you just have to let people feel what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And
not try to give them a quick fix.
No.
Yeah.
And on Sunday, you and I spoke, it was well past 9 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
So I know I have people I can turn to. Your family. I can call you in the middle of the night and I know for sure that you're going to be there for me.
That's right.
But I could have called people all day, but I was too savage all day. And then there was that mayonnaise lady.
Oh my God.
That it sparked. I said, I have to share this with Bram Levinson. And then
that mayonnaise meme is, it's not, I want to say it's so stupid. It's not even so stupid. It's the mind of the person who captioned it.
Who made the connection.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Because I
I've never
shared that
seen
with about 18 people.
Yeah.
And each of them came back and said, OMG, so accurate.
Yeah. Fully.
We shouldn't talk about that too much. It's unfair. But just ask us. We'll send it to you.
Yeah, we'll send it to you.
It's on my phone forever now. But you were exactly the person I needed to speak to that night. Because I knew that you and we could just have like no judgment. This is what's going on.
Just and to a certain extent, it's I maybe the metaphor is not great, but I mean just a vomitorium of like unloading. You know, that's what I think. That's so important. I think it's important for people to have that. I think it's important for people to know that they have that, even if they don't use it. You know.
But you're right, though. Like we were also on the way here talking about having nothing left to lose and realizing this is going to trigger people. And
yeah,
I mean, you and we were raised on the same type of humor. We both love
truly tasteless jokes.
Truly tasteless jokes. I remember it was a lime green cover.
Well, I had 5 or 6 editions. There was like truly tasteless jokes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes, I was only allowed to have one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't think my parents even knew that we had them right there. That goes to show the difference in parenting, a Jewish family versus Italian family, but whatever. Same demographic, though. I mean, same neighborhood. We grew up in the same hood.
But my Truly Tasteless joke book, I remember it was lime green, and the lettering was white.
Yes, I remember.
But I think it's just, and like people who know me and who know you, they know that we come from a good place. But
I'd like to think that with you, that may be the situation. With me, I don't know all the time.
Well,
because some people don't know me. They don't know me, the person. They know my name. So if I put a joke, like sometimes I'll put something that's why I try. I shouldn't say that. I was going to say that's why I try to swear. I don't try to swear. Whenever I post something and there are curse words in it, it's because I put them in because that's the expression. Mm-hmm. So the byproduct of that is people don't, I think, put me on as much of a pedestal as they would if I was being really impeccable with my languaging. I am being impeccable with my languaging, but this is my languaging.
It's who you are.
Yes. But sometimes I post things that I think are really funny or really twisted, like, and that's like if you know me, then you know that I'm into that. And the people who don't know me, I think it throws them off because I think in their mind I'm supposed to simply be the source of the inspiration. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm the Eckhart Tolle who first of all I don't even know if I'm fucking pronouncing that right. I've never read his shit. I'm not interested. But I'd like to think that you're right. I like to think that people who do know me will understand the intention behind it all.
And you are held up to a certain standard because of what you do and because of how you help people.
Yeah.
If I'm occasionally loudmouthed, inappropriate, I work in advertising. So if I'm being weird, it's just kind of like, she's just doing her
creative.
thing. She's a creative spirit. She's just doing her thing. There's that voice again. But like you have a bigger standard that you have to live up to, and people will take you to the mat.
Well, this is why I've never done this before. This is why I've spoken about doing a podcast like this, but never actually done it. Some of the conversations that I've had with you, some of the conversations I've had with other people in their cars, where I've said, "Oh my God, we need the microphone. We need the microphone." I think it would be the end of my career. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I don't really care. That's the thing about this whole thing is. I posted this thing. I told you about it when we were... Well, you saw it this morning, but I posted this thing on Facebook today about how, the culture and the society we've lived in forever has prioritized economic well-being over personal well-being. So if you're sick, tough shit, go to work. And now with this pandemic where people realize that illness could devastate and is transmittable, all of a sudden the government is now looking at legislating policies that sort of speak to wellness, like paid vacation days and 4-day work weeks and that kind of thing. And I'm sitting here laughing, thinking, where the fuck has everybody been? Is this how evolution happens? Is it? And I've said it before, like we will make changes when we get this shit scared out of us, and that's what's happening now. Mm-hmm. Hopefully those changes will happen. Hopefully we don't go back to where we were and then some because we feel like we have to make up for the lost time. But I posted what I posted on Facebook, and I didn't think it was that much of a risk. But then I thought, you know what, fuck it, I'm posting it on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn against my better judgment because LinkedIn for me is it's just tons of mutual corporate masturbation. It's a bunch of people saying, had such a wonderful time at the conference as the keynote speaker. It's like, okay, if you want us to know that you were the keynote speaker, just come out and fucking say you were the keynote speaker. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, had such a wonderful time. Did you? Because I'm pretty sure that at a certain point you wanted out, but you couldn't. You know what I mean? Annoyed. Anyway. So LinkedIn, not a fan. But I'm on it, again, intentionally to show that I've got my feet on the ground. I'm not simply talking about unicorns and lollipops and third eye chakras and bullshit like that, And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to post this on LinkedIn. I'm going to post something that is actually a little bit accusatory and a little bit sort of shedding light on the bullshit of the corporate world in a corporate world environment, or as close to one as I'm going to get. And I posted it, and I thought, oh, God, I wonder if I'm going to get shit for this. I wonder if people are going to start to call me to task. And I thought, you know what? I don't care. It's not like I've ever gotten a job off of LinkedIn. It's not like I fucking know anybody there. And it's not like I give a shit. That's the thing. I don't care. I've always sort of not given a shit, but still kind of gave a shit in the back of my mind. And that something happened over the past couple of days where I give less of a shit. I don't even care. And I think it's because I posted that thing on Facebook and somebody responded who is not only in the healthcare industry, she's working on a red floor of the elder care homes. Mm-hmm. And she basically said, this is proven that human lives are disposable because it's the economy that has taken precedent over our well-being. And that really got me thinking. The fact that, she didn't say it like that, I'm sort of paraphrasing, but the fact that these human lives that we take so seriously and we try to build these empires and we try to it's the how do you look and what have you built and how much money, all that bullshit. It's all bullshit. I thought, you know what? I don't give a shit. I don't care. If I want to stir shit up, and if that stirs shit up on LinkedIn, then good. And if it gets one like, that to me, that's the equivalent of 1,000 likes on LinkedIn, because I don't care. I want to stir shit up. I want to somehow be part of the awakening to the fact that we've been adhering to rules that may have worked for our parents' generation, but like we're so far from that. We have everything we need to take care of each other, and it was the only thing that we weren't doing, and then this happened to basically expose that,
And the thing is, we've been talking about this, the collective we, but also you and I, and the patriarchy, globalization, the current structures that we were living with were not sustainable.
Yep.
We've been saying this for years.
Yep.
And for years, the patriarchy, the structure, the whatever bad guy name you want to put on it, they have always said to us, these things cannot be changed overnight. It's going to take 220 years for women to get pay equity. These things can't happen overnight. Guess what? There's a pandemic. All of a sudden, we're finding housing for the homeless. We're giving money to people. We're actually giving people a basic income.
Yes, and the government, by giving the CERB for it to be $2,000 a month, has basically made an indirect statement saying this is the living wage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we have proven, because of the situation we're in, that we can make these changes overnight. The only reason that we haven't made these changes up until now is that the people with the most money were trying to hold on to their money.
Yeah. And the thing is, I think that's so interesting that you're saying that, because, the Jeff Bezos and the people, the Bill Gates, all these people who, represent the 0.00001%. And by the way, I'm not anti-money. I'm just anti-elevating money above all things.
Exactly.
I think that the really interesting thing is that we've been led to believe that if these people have all that, then there's not enough for everyone else to go around. And what the governments have shown is that when it comes down to the crux of the matter, which is where it is now, they'll print it. They'll print the money. So there's a limitless amount of money, and because our economic systems are like, oh, well, yeah, but if you print more money, it devalues your currency. So let's stop fucking comparing our currency against other nations' currencies. Who said that was the measure of wealth and health and well-being? It's not. I think I completely have an issue with that, and I think that especially if everybody has always compared their currency to the American dollar. If there's one fucking country in the world that we need to stop comparing ourselves to, it's that fucking shit show. Because I'm so over what's going on there. I'm so over everybody going, oh, but the American dream. You remember we went to go see Chelsea Handler.
Yes.
Was it last summer or two summers ago?
Last summer.
And I asked her, do you still believe that America is home of the free and land of the free, home of the brave, or home of the free, whatever the fuck it is? And she said, no, of course not. And meanwhile, before she could even answer it, everybody in the audience was like, no, no, no. The States is done. The state, and I hate to say that, but I mean, we grew up with the States being like the holy grail. We couldn't get close enough to it. We would cross border shop.
Our only TV channels were American TV channels.
And our music.
And our music, everything.
Yeah.
Our whole culture.
Yeah.
But to quickly roll back to something else, you were saying, we talk about the economy and the currency as if it's this creature. The economy and money is people.
Yes.
The people who make it, the people who spend it.
Yes.
So to talk about it like it's something that's not built on our sweat.
Yes.
And that it's not something that we are entitled to is completely hypocritical. And the most inhumane thing I've ever seen. Its money is made on the backs of the poorest who end up working the hardest for the smallest wage.
And yet those are the ones that we legislate against so that they can't come into our country and take the jobs that our own families don't want to do. And look what's happening, like we were talking about when we were walking up here. The asylum seekers who are the ones who are on the front lines in those elder care homes on the red floors, now they're being given asylum. Now they're being given the right to stay in these countries because they've essentially put their lives at risk to save the ones who we are related to, who we don't even go visit.
And the most shameful part of it is how long it took the government to get around this.
Yeah.
There have been people who have been legislating for this since the beginning of the pandemic, even before the pandemic, saying now that there's a pandemic, we have to take care of the refugees who have found shelter here in Canada. And the governments drag their feet. The only reason that they're doing it now is that there has been so much sustained pressure on them. And
complete devastation in those
devastation in those care homes.
Yeah.
That they privatized all those care homes. They happily sold them. People were making money. Nobody was taking care of the system. And now they're all kind of shuffling and wringing their hands and looking at each other.
Well, what do you think? Let me ask you a question. What do you think? Because something that I've heard being thrown around is because here in Quebec, what happened was the government took elderly or infirm elderly patients out of hospitals and put them into these homes, thinking that would be the best way to protect them. Not thinking that the people who live in the poorest neighborhoods who had been exposed to the virus were working in these places. And that's one of the theories as to how, this all happened in the elder care homes. What do you think about the arguments I've been hearing saying it actually serves the government's interests to let elderly people pass away because then they're not relying on the system?
Of course. I think
it's one more sign that the system is broken.
Yes, and since the beginning I've been calling this confinement, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, the strange gift.
I love that.
It is bringing up so many beautiful things and so many changes, but at the same time that it has laid bare everything that is wrong with society, it has also shown how we can come together. And I think that it essentially highlighted the fact that we don't give worth to our seniors.
Yep.
We don't take care of them. They get dumped into these homes for the most part.
You know what it reminds me of? The best before dates on food. Just because there's a date on it, most people throw out, not realizing it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's, like medication. It's reduced in potency.
Exactly.
Unless it's like a steak or, what I mean?
Milk.
Something. Yeah, or milk. You're not going to fuck with that.
Go.
Yeah, or the eggs. I'm not going to fuck with that either. I know people who would, but I won't. But essentially it's sort of like that. It's like once you hit a certain age, the insidious ageism that is part of our culture is like, okay, well, you no longer contribute. You're no longer a contributor to the economic system that we have raised above all else. So let's shuffle you off into a corner and pretend that you don't exist and give you the minimal amount of sustenance so that you can sort of wither away.
And also, they are living, walking, talking reminders of our own mortality.
And our own history.
So
these are the carriers of history.
Yeah, and if you're not okay
Yeah.
with who you are and where you've came from and where you're going,
Yeah.
they present malaise and a threat every single day.
That's so interesting. Wow. Oh, yeah. Fully.
Because, think of it. You and I are 47 this year.
Yeah.
Right?
Crazy.
And, if we look at the whole feminism question, I'm barely fuckable now, right? I'm aging out. This is, of course, in reference to Tina Fey's and Amy Poehler and Julia Louis-Dreyfus's brilliant skit about the last fuckable day.
Yeah.
So women, as we become less sexually desirable, we begin to become invisible.
Yeah.
Men, as they lose money, they lose power, they get fatter, they get balder, they begin to lose power. And none of this is based on anything other than chimeras. It's all ethereal. It all doesn't exist. And so... But
like I wrote in my first book, just because a million people believe something is something doesn't make it something. Exactly. It just means that a million people believe it.
Exactly.
And the more people who believe that if you get to a certain age, you're less fuckable, then that's what people tend to adopt as an assumption, which turns into a belief. And then that's where the taboo starts to come out because people start to verbalize it, and I think it's stupid.
It is because, and maybe also because of the cultures that you and I were brought up in.
Yeah.
My grandparents were loved and cherished up until their last day on earth.
Same.
They were an active part of my childhood.
And family.
And family. For us, it was a very different thing. I joke, but it's true. Back in the 70s and 80s, when I was a kid, I went to funerals.
Mm-hmm.
My parents
Me
didn't
too.
get a babysitter.
Yep.
They weren't worried
Why
about...
does that happen now?
Well, a lot of people I know are afraid. They don't want to expose their children to death too early because then they have to talk about it and it's hard. And whereas with my parents, they're immigrants. They didn't care about my self-esteem. They were just... They were like, go to school, don't be an asshole, eat all your vegetables, right? So for them, they weren't...
Parenting 101.
They weren't worried that my tender little self was going to be damaged by going to a funeral. They were like, here's your great-grandmother. She just died. She's cold. She's in a coffin. Give her a kiss. And you did.
And then go home. We need to sweep the floor.
Yeah. Well, pretty much. And then, what happened is they put you back on the ground.
Yeah.
You kissed this corpse. You're like, all right.
Yeah.
And then you ran off. You found your cousins and you were running up and down the halls and just living.
Isn't that interesting? Because if they don't make it a big deal, then it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal.
Right. So if we don't make things a big deal, they're not a big deal.
They're not a big deal.
And certain things should be made a big deal of, like injustice and inequality and hypocrisy and all that shit. But there's so much, and I suppose that's just life, right? It's never going to be perfect, but there's so many things that we negate as being like less than.
Oh, I have such a good question for you.
Go.
So, do you think that our current context will change the relationship that people have with death and mortality?
I mean, it's a good question because I have actually been surprised. Like, I work with death. I've studied death. I've studied different belief systems and religions' approach to death. And I have actually been really surprised, and it's had me sort of get lost down some philosophical, strange ways, because I've been thinking about how desensitized we're becoming to death. Because every day it's numbers, right? Every day is the number bigger, is the number smaller?
Oh my God, yes.
And we're not being, what's not being. It is on a micro level, but on more of a macro level, we're not looking at the fact that every one of those numbers is a story, is a history, is a family. So if like every one of those people has, I don't know, 50 people, to be conservative, 50 people who give a shit. This is devastating. This is devastating just simply to the collective consciousness and to the collective wellness.
And you saw the New York Times cover.
Yes.
The
And that was just
1,000
1,000. That was just 1,000 of how many? 100,000.
That was 1% of the actual
I thought
number
that
of
was the
deaths.
most brilliant cover.
It was beautiful.
I saw one cover where it had the photo of that idiot golfing superimposed on it, and then I saw
Yes.
some without it. I prefer the one of him golfing on it, because I hope that that's emblazoned in people's minds. And I'm telling you something, if the United States doesn't do something about it, they're already the laughing stock. I mean, when I travel and people ask me if I'm American and I say no, I'm Canadian, and they go, oh, okay, good for you. Well, you know what? There's no if they don't. It's not up to me, and I don't give a shit anymore. The States, as far as I'm concerned, is somewhere that I'm boycotting. I'm not going. I'm not supporting that shit. But
And they were was it him who actually said we're just going to have to accept the fact that a certain number of people are going to die?
Boris Johnson.
It was Boris Johnson
said that.
Oh,
yeah.
the other one.
Yeah, the other one. the other Tweedledee and Tweedledum. Tweedledee and Tweedledummer. No, but yes, I have been surprised at how desensitized we have become through media to death. To death, and that the flip side of that, the good aspect of that, is that it's brought me to a place where I'm like, I don't give a shit. All the things that I've always sort of had insecurities about, or I've doubted whether I could or whether I should, fuck it. Fuck all of that. I don't give a shit. If I could be dead tomorrow, and I mean, I knew this.
Amen, brother.
I learned this when my friend died in 9/11 in one of the towers. I learned this. Because I really approached that from a very symbolic, what am I meant to learn way. And the lesson that I've taught since then has been, anything can happen to anyone at any time, so use your time wisely and do it for you. This has been a massive reminder, a shocking reminder, where I almost forgot that I forgot. And so do I think that we're going to have a different relationship to death? I don't know. I think that, if anything, those photos that came up in the paper a couple of days ago, that park in Toronto,
Oh,
where
Trinity
like the second
Bellwoods.
the second they opened the park, like there was no social distancing, nobody was respecting the
10,000
guidelines.
people.
10,000 people. I think that's an indication that no, I don't think people's relationships to death is gonna change necessarily, because I think it makes people so uncomfortable. And that's why, listen, if it wasn't a matter of life and death, they wouldn't have shut down the economy. They would have allowed people to keep dying because they could keep the economy going, and that was more important. I think it makes people uncomfortable.
So this comes back to the other question that I started to ask you before, and that I don't think I gave you the chance to answer.
Or I may have gotten. No, but I also
we're
sidetrack.
chatty. We're
I
chatty.
go off on tangents.
We're chatty peeps.
Yeah.
So my question is, how can you spend 3 months confined in your home,
Yeah.
deprived of all the things that you love, and still be completely oblivious to what's happening inside your body and outside your house?
I think because, I mean, there's two answers to this. The first answer is our culture doesn't set us up to thrive by looking at that stuff. The infrastructure isn't there. We're not encouraged to do it. So if we're not encouraged to do it, it's uncharted territory, and we feel like we're on our own if we do it. So a lot of people aren't going to bother because they don't want to be on their own, and that scares the shit out of them. I think the other answer is people are afraid that if they do that work, something is going to have to change.
Yes.
And people, the only certainty is uncertainty. This is what we were talking about when we were walking up here. And as I've said before, the only thing we know for sure is that everything is changing. It's the only constant, change. And yet the human brain psychologically seeks out stability. So people who stay in abusive relationships do so because better the devil you know. A lot of people are going to be more comfortable with the devil they know because the devil they don't know integrates fear into their mind. And when fear integrates into the mind, what it does is it messes with your ability to accurately predict the future. That's been psychologically proven. Mm-hmm. So if you are afraid and you start to go into, well, what will it look like if I do this work? Or if I go there, it's going to give you an unrealistic impression of what life will look like. It's not actually going to be that, but that's what happens in the brain. So I think people they think about it, they go into like worst case scenario, they're like, well, this is better. And so I'll just Netflix. But it's an incredibly valid question. It's a fascinating moment in time. I'd like to think that it's watershed. There's part of me that wants it to last as long as possible, because the longer it lasts, the more people have to acclimate and they have to change. And there's no better time to stop giving a shit, to quit your job if you're not happy, to quit your relationship if you're not happy, to take whatever changes you want than when necessity beckons. When things are born out of necessity, that's when the most effective changes happen. It's when we have the luxury of choosing that we stay stagnant,
Amen.
So yeah, that's a good question though.
It's just because for me, it's so astonishing to see people who think that because the stores are reopening this week, that things are over. We can go back to normal now.
Well, I told you. I had an outdoor dinner the first night that we were allowed to do it with friends, social distancing, and there was this one girl who was there who, I know, I've met her a couple of times. She's a nice enough sort. I suspect that she's a little bit ignorant, though, because she sat down and she immediately started talking about how this is the end. And like, I don't like to shame people, and I don't, even though I'm kind of doing it now, but whatever, I don't get, what do I have to lose? I don't give a shit. I sat down and I sort of said, well, I'm not sure that that's entirely true. Instead of saying, are you out of your fucking mind? I was like, I'm not sure that that's entirely true. And then she was like, no, this is the end of it. And I spent a minute talking about like the history of pandemics and epidemics and the second wave and all that. And then I thought, this is like speaking to someone who supports Trump. Don't try. And so I just let it be. But my partner was there. My partner, who you know very well, who's also family, who is a scientist, and I think is somewhere on the spectrum because, he speaks his truth at all costs in any situation, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not.
God bless.
I thought that he was going to lose his shit. He didn't. He was remarkably calm. But I think it required work on his part. And that's the thing. We talked about people who aren't in our bubble. You know, obviously we all hang out with people who reinforce our beliefs and our ideas, and then you meet somebody who actually doesn't, and who actually may represent a dangerous part of the population. And I think that's what, you know, it kind of depressed me. After I had that meal, it depressed me because I was like, see, this is not a moment to and it's not that because her opinion differed, it's because she was argumentative. That's what it was. This is not a time to be argumentative. This is not a time to be right. This is a time where everybody should be getting through it collectively, because the people who are not getting through it, or who are not choosing to get through it as efficiently as we can collectively, as far as I'm concerned, thin the fucking herd. Go Darwinian on those fuckers. I have no time for it. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I really believe in humanity, and we're all showing up with our best self. See, I'm doing the voice.
You're doing the
I'm
voice.
doing the voice. Well, I don't think we aren't showing up with our best selves. I think that there are a lot, you know, the Hindu scriptures talk to us about demons. There are demons among us, and sometimes they show up at fucking dinner. And it represents something that saddens me, you know?
I think the thing that I appreciate most about all of this, and it's related to what you're saying, although it may not sound like that at the beginning, is that it has all required us to take individual responsibility, to take more responsibility for ourselves and our lives, and to make decisions and to deal with the consequences in a much more direct way.
Yes, because there's fewer distractions. There's few focusing outwards.
Exactly.
There's a lot. People are forced to focus inwards now.
And so what's been really hard for me is that a lot of discussions over the last 8 weeks are just friends who want to obsess about everybody who's not paying attention to the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
There's a lot of hand-wringing of like, oh my God, so I saw these people this morning and they weren't social distancing. And I'm not saying I didn't do it. I've done it. I still occasionally do it. I walk down the street and I'm looking at people thinking, don't tell me that you live together. You do not live together, all 12 of you.
Yeah, totally.
But I find that whenever we get into discussions where we start getting anxious about other people's decisions,
yeah,
I actually had to, quite rudely, and I apologize to her, but last week I actually said to somebody, please stop.
Yeah.
I cut them off and I said, this discussion that we're having is making me more anxious about things that don't impact me.
And things you can't control.
I can't control that.
Yeah.
The only thing I can control right now is my interactions with the world, my reactions to the world, and how I take care of myself and other people.
And you know what? My higher self, for lack of a better term, like my intellectual brain, which is not my higher self. I don't know why I'm equating them, but my intellectual brain is then saying to me, well, you know what? Because my approach has always been, don't judge. And I'm doing it, but I'm catching myself on the judgment. I'm doing my best to do that because everybody is internalizing this in a different way. And it can't be my responsibility to judge whether they're doing it the right way or the wrong way, because everybody is coming to this game with a different set of tools. You know, and as we talked about before, some of those tools are worth jack shit on some days, you know. Which then leads me back to the tree huggers. You want to hug a tree. Who am I to judge? Honestly, I think it's weird, but again, who the fuck am I to judge? You know, you may think that it's weird that we're sitting here with a fucking microphone between us on a boulder in the middle of a green space in the middle of nowhere, you know. But yeah, you're right. That's a thing, though. Everybody's judgment about who's jogging with or without a mask, who's got a mask,
exactly.
Who's social. Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, I talk to a lot of people. I have the pleasure of having a vast network of friends, acquaintances, family, both chosen and blood related. And I see all the different choices that everybody's making. I know people who are dating. I know people who are having hookups.
When you say dating, you mean people who are meeting people
yes.
right now and not socially distancing.
Socially distancing, but still with a stranger. Some are going beyond that. Some have been like hanging out with their friends.
2 meter barrier. They're breaching the 2 centimeter barrier.
I see everybody's idea of what social distancing and what they need in order to survive is really, really different.
Yes.
And it's so easy to get excited and anxious about other people and what they're doing.
I have a friend who's dating and getting intimate with people, and she didn't want to tell me because she was afraid that I was going to judge her. And I was like, honey, if this is what makes you happy, every one of us has to make our own decisions. You know, and I know that a lot of people are going to take issue with that, saying, no, it's not about you. It's about the people you could potentially impact who aren't as fortified as you are. And I understand that argument as well. And it's all valid, you know.
But we are going to have to be a little bit elastic with how we judge others. Because, of course, the whole problem with judging is that it kind of ça sous-entend that you are superior, that you are making better decisions. And let's be honest, I'm not always making the best decisions. I'm not always the nicest person. I often snap and say really awful things.
Yep, you and me both.
But we're all doing what we can to get through this, and we all have to take care of each other a little bit and be a little bit compassionate towards each other.
Yes.
And live with the consequences. We're going to have to live with the consequences of our actions no matter what we're doing.
Yes, and I think that that does come back to compassion. It comes back to being compassionate to other people, understanding they're I don't want to say they're doing the best they can, but they're doing what they can with what they have to work with. Even if some of them are demons.
Yes, and if you can't deal with that, that's great. Stay at home.
Yeah.
Encourage people to make better decisions.
Yeah. Lead by example.
Lead by example.
And be compassionate with yourself. I think that's the most important thing, because that's something I think that the day that we both had individually and unbeknownst to each other the other day, I wasn't being compassionate to myself. I was being the fixer to myself. So I went on a long walk. It was fantastic. Came here actually, where we are now, and then came home and then took the dog out and went to the park to meditate. And then I went home and I thought, okay, well maybe if I like watch a show, maybe that'll changer les idées kind of thing. And maybe if I do this, and luckily my partner came home and I was like, and he said, how's it going? And I was like, not a good one. Today's not a good one. It's just not a good one. But it's so funny because I'm so good at giving this advice to other people. Just be compassionate with yourself. It completely was not on my radar. What's that expression? The carpenter's cabin is the one most crooked.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did have a thought as we were talking that maybe this isn't so sensational. Maybe this isn't so, maybe this doesn't need to be another podcast. Maybe this is just the latest episode in the Examine Life podcast. Because, ultimately we are talking about life.
We are.
And hopefully I'm doing it in a way that doesn't offend people. But you know what? If I am offending people, then stop listening to me.
But I think this is the whole point about this strange gift, right? The other part of this strange gift is that it is requiring us to talk and think differently about everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe we need to be inappropriate. Maybe we need to explore strange new ideas.
And maybe push we've spoken about this so many times in the past, but the fact that this moment in time leading up to the pandemic, everybody was literally on, they were at the start line of a marathon, ready to pounce on anybody who made the slightest comment that was not appropriate. Mm-hmm. And everybody's a different judge of what's appropriate. Desperate to be offended is the expression that we were using. Maybe we need to fucking relax a little bit. Yes, it's okay to call people out on bullshit and on misogyny and on abuse and on, white privilege, any privilege. Fine, absolutely. I'm all for having that discussion. And by the way, I'm fully aware of mine, and I'm trying to use them as responsibly as possible. But with that said, maybe we don't have to fucking attack every single person who potentially says something that gets our back up because we're so miserable and we're just, so under tension that the slightest thing has us react. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're supposed to start getting back to real conversations. When we've talked about it, when you look at Saturday Night Live from the 1980s, when everything was based on race, everything was based on gender, everything was based on ability versus disability, all the comedy, and it wasn't because we were laughing at it. We were laughing with those who were part of those subcultures who understood that nothing is ever one thing. And sometimes the things that we're so afraid to talk about, maybe we can find humor. Maybe we can find commonality in it. That Joe Piscopo, Eddie Murphy thing, Stevie Wonder and Frank Sinatra at the piano. Mm-hmm. That was amazing. If you're listening and you don't know what we're talking about, you need to look that shit up.
And I think it's essentially based in the fact that For me, no matter what luggage you are carrying in this life, we're all human.
Yep.
And we all need to be able to laugh at ourselves.
Yes.
And we all need to be able to be fallible and have weaknesses and occasionally do stupid things. And I've, over the years, through all the people that I've met, like I've met people who are differently abled, and they've told me, I don't want to be treated special.
Yep.
I fart. I'm occasionally an asshole.
Yep.
Like, just treat me like you would everybody else.
Yep.
Don't put me on a pedestal. Don't say that I can't.
But what's really fascinating is that I've never thought about this, but if that's the way that we are with other people, then wouldn't that only make sense that that's the way we are with ourselves? And if that's the way we are with ourselves, then isn't that bringing us to a place where life is not as much fun? And then everybody's under tension. Yeah, she's raising the roof. You can't see it, but maybe that's why, like, statistics of unhappiness and loneliness are skyrocketing before COVID. Maybe that's it, because if that's where we are in the collective, then it's only normal that we're holding ourselves up to the same standards. And if we can't give ourselves a break and laugh at something that maybe, I was raised by my parents. My mother has the sickest sense of humor out of anybody. It's highly inappropriate. It's that thing where you can't help laughing after you've taken a sharp intake of breath.
Yeah.
Where you've done the oh.
There are jokes that I will never be able to tell another human being.
I know. And you know what? The shit's still funny.
Yep.
No matter who says it's not, no matter who says it's inappropriate, it's still fucking funny. And if anybody has a problem with that, you can stop the fucking podcast now. I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. I'm not interested in playing this game where I'm focusing on numbers, where I want people, as many people as possible, and I'll say and do whatever. I want to stir shit up. Now this is where I am. And this is what we were talking about. I want to stir shit up. I want to make people think. I want to get people angry. I want to instigate change somehow. And I don't even know why. I don't even know why I give a shit. It's not like I don't have better shit to do, but whatever. I don't know.
You are who you are. You are Bram Levinson.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, my main goal since the beginning of this has been to conserve my energy. And now, like you talk about not giving a shit, it's essentially, I've gotten really good at parsing what is worth getting involved with and what isn't. Mm-hmm. And there's so much. Somebody the other day was like bitching about the construction in the city, and I was like,
nope, don't have time.
I don't have time.
I'm a big fan of picking your battles.
And
big fan.
I'm getting also really good at realizing who I can engage with. And like, if somebody makes a joke that is just vraiment déplacé, knowing who they are, knowing what their values are and how they actually behave in the world, I'm like, you are letting off some steam. That's fine. It. Please make your racist joke.
Yeah.
Because I know that you're actually the ally who tries to help others.
Yes.
In all situations.
Yeah.
So in an effort to conserve energy, because I think we need more energy now than ever.
Yes.
In order to keep us moving forward. There's just a lot that's just not worth getting upset about.
I agree.
Other than the people who are like, if you do yoga, you won't get COVID. Or one of my personally favorite memes is, I don't understand. Why is there a pandemic? So many white women have crystals.
I know. That's the best. That is, all of that is. Can I ask a question? What's with the Karen? What's the Karen thing?
I think
is that like to refer to like a white woman, like a white privileged woman?
A white privileged woman, generally a Trump voter. They tend
to
have
she's Karen, like Will and Grace Karen.
Right, but less rich.
Okay.
But I think it's more of a U.S. thing. It's really starting to creep now into Canada.
Yeah, because I've been seeing it, and I'm like, I think that's what it means.
The Karen who wants to see the manager right away. So she's entitled, righteous, thinks that everybody has to bow down to her needs.
Sure.
And so it's funny because the mayonnaise woman, that also could have been a Karen meme.
Fully. By the way, if your name is Karen and you're listening to this, I'd like to hear about how potentially this has altered your life. The fact that your name is now equated with some sort of, psychological profile that seems to be undesirable.
And also comes with a bad haircut.
Oh, does it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have any parting words? in this clearing. I can't believe we've been left alone for this. It's almost been an hour that we've been talking, and no one has shown up in this clearing. It's amazing that we have this in the middle of the city. And by the way, we're out here early in the morning because we're in the first day of a heat wave. Mm-hmm. What day is it? May 26th?
Tuesday? That's all I got.
Are we still in 2020? What happened?
It's still May. Still May.
Time is an illusion.
Time is an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
I think essentially my parting words would be what I've been saying since the beginning. These are pandemic times. You got to do what you got to do to take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, take care of your people, be kind to yourself. And don't judge yourself for eating what you need to eat or for sleeping when you need to sleep.
This is like the rebirth of the carb.
Ugh.
The flip side of the pandemic is it's the reverse. It's like it's the phoenix from the flames. It's the carb rising from the ashes.
Literally rising because
of
yeast.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about the 4 pizza doughs I made this morning?
That are in your freezer?
That are in my freezer?
Listen, I've never made anything bready in my life. I didn't think I ever would. And then all of a sudden I got flour. And then I got yeast. And when I got the yeast, talk about how value shift. I got the yeast and I was like, oh, I just won the lottery. Yeah. I don't need a scratch card. I got yeast. So I decided I was going to do this pan pizza where you do the dough and then you put it in the pan and it fries in the pan. Except I didn't have self-raising flour. And so the recipe is you add baking soda and I think salt to it, whatever. Long story short, I had to keep adding flour in order for it to not... I put that thing in the pan and then I topped it with amazing toppings. It was so delicious. Jalapeno, brine.
Oh my God.
And sausage and it was gorgeous. I swear to God, the thickness of the crust was like 2 soles of an Air Jordan runner. It was so when I served it for dinner, my partner had to cut it in half just so that he wasn't eating 2 times the pizza dough. It was a pizza fail. I'm gonna be trying it again on my own so that I'm not.
I got you covered.
Okay.
I'm gonna test the pizza dough today, and if it's good, I'm gonna bring some around to you. It's good.
Here's to carbs.
Here's to carbs.
Yeah. And I mean, my parting words are the parting words I always use. Give this all a good think. Hopefully this has provoked some thought, and hopefully you're going through this situation right now looking for the bright spots and not just focusing on the horror of it all. Give it all a good think, and I'll see you later.
Bye.
This has been the Examine Life with Bram Levinson.